Yeah, of course. So my name is Toby Freeman. I have the privilege of being the founder and CEO of the Robin Cancer Trust, which I'm sure we can dive into. Hobbies outside of what I do, there's not a huge amount of time. Young family. I do enjoy a bit of running, and to tie that in with my work, I also run around as a giant testicle. There's no other way of saying it, really. I run around like a giant ball bag to raise awareness, break the stigma, and hopefully start some important conversations that lead to people checking themselves and going to their doctors. So most of what I do is circulated around um, that. Really, it's yeah. My work takes up a lot of time, and then all of my hobbies I try and intertwine with it, so I can always be working and having fun. I think that's the dream. So context very important, especially coming on from what I just said. But my why is all driven from the fact that I lost my brother to a rare form of testicular cancer when he was just 24. So I'm the youngest of three brothers. I watched my elder brother, Rob, go from prime of his life, literally didn't smoke, barely drank, always at the gym, eating healthy, career ahead of him, had moved out, just at that time of his life where everything was in front of him. He had this signs and symptoms that he unfortunately mistook for other things and didn't know what to look out for, and ignored and continued to live with. And he was diagnosed with this rare form of testicular cancer at stage 4. Obviously, that's as late a stage as you can be. And I just watched him go through round after round of chemotherapy, near surgery, stem cell transplant, the roller coaster of, a family being affected by cancer, the highs, the lows, all of that. And unfortunately, after 10 months, they told him there was nothing more that they could do. And he was diagnosed in January in 2011, and we lost him by the December. So as a family, we went through that, and we realized that Rob, being who he was, being aware of his body, could miss all of these signs and symptoms, then this could happen to anyone. And that was the spark to start the charity. No one was out there talking about these type of cancers. No one was talking to young people, especially. And we decided we want to bring that voice, and we decided to go at that with humor, because it's a very serious topic. We had a very serious story to tell. It wasn't a I've been through this and survived. It was a we've lost someone. So the way to counterbalance that was with humor. And we realized that that was a great way to start really important conversations. And that's sort of been the ethos for the charity ever since. And that's been my driving purpose for many, many years now. Going on 15 years since we lost Rob, I've just been plugging away at trying to reach as many people in as many different ways as possible. And that's taken us all around the country doing all sort of things. We've grown the charity to now cover awareness, education, and support. So we do lots of big awareness campaigns. We've sent balls into space. We've broken world records. I run around like a giant testicle, like I said, like I joked about earlier. That's an extreme example of that awareness raising, that stigma breaking part of what we do. And then the education, we go into schools and colleges, universities, businesses, talking mainly at younger people, but obviously the conversation is pertinent to anyone. About signs and symptoms, risk factors, and most importantly, how, especially with younger people, how to go to the doctor, how to talk to your doctor, so not just reducing the embarrassment factor, but the empowering of these are how I have these important conversations so the doctor can help me best, because we know those doctor's appointments are gold dust. And then the support as well. So if anyone's been affected by it, we give out free cancer support packs. We have a podcast for the cancer community, and we have a community online where we bring people together that they can just talk to their peers while they're going through it, which is so powerful, that power of being around people that get it, that have been through it or are going through it. So it's been an amazing journey over those 15 years, seeing it grow from this tragedy that we went through, trying to prevent another family, feeling isolated, feeling alone, not being able to find any information out there, to now having this sort of like national reach, this national audience, and an amazing team delivering for our community. Yeah, I suppose the first thing is there's no right or wrong way to deal with grief, right? I think I talked about this in my TED Talk, went about it the wrong way. I was trying to avoid all of those feelings that that I was experiencing. It was obviously the most traumatic, the worst thing I've ever been through, watching my brother, my best friend, my idol, was always there for me, sort of deteriorate and then losing him. So, I drank far too much. I made a lot of bad choices. After Rob's death, I was lucky to have an amazing support network that helped me, and an amazing partner, my now wife, who basically gave me an ultimatum of saying, look, if you don't pull yourself together, this isn't going to work. And she kicked me up the butt to go to grief counselling from our local hospice. And actually, one thing I've learned is, although Rob was in the hospice, you don't actually need to have gone through the hospice or be supported by the hospice. Anyone that's been through loss can be supported by their local hospice if they have a grief counselling service. And that was transformative for me. So having that safe space away from anyone else that was affected by grief, because the problem when you lose someone is it's like a tornado and you're in the eye of the storm, but everyone around you is still being affected by it. You go and talk to your friends, but they knew your brother. You go and talk to your family members, they are grieving in their own separate ways as much as you. Everyone's affected by it. Having a space where you go into a room and you're allowed to express your emotions however you want to express them, with a third party that isn't invested in it, in the nicest way. They're there to help you, but they don't know your brother. They don't know your story. They don't know your grief. You're just there to express that to them, was just transformative for me. And I was lucky enough to have a whole round of grief counselling. And at the end, the counsellor said, we're here if you need us, but I don't think you need any more counselling. And I haven't, but, I've had family members that have gone back after years because they've still really been struggling. And I think it's just an amazing thing. So it's really hard to do in the eye of the storm. Like, I couldn't do it. Like I said, I had someone give me an ultimatum that was more powerful than the feelings I was experiencing, to make that change. But I would say to anyone, talk to other people that aren't affected by your grief. That might be a group, that might be a charity where they have a community, but that might also be professional help like I seeked. So I think that was one of the most transformational things. And then, no one starts. My brother didn't pass away and I thought, we're going to start a charity and it's going to be this national movement and we're going to have a big community. You don't do any of that. You just go, something really horrible's happened and I want to do something good to counteract that. Now, my dad is an ultimate pragmatist, and I love him for this, but when we sort of roughly talked about wanting to maybe start a charity or do something for charity, he had 3 rules. And he said, we're going to do something that isn't already existing, because if there's a cause or a charity already doing what we want to do, we'll just support them. We don't need to create a charity. We're not going to do something as a grief reaction. We're going to do it because it's needed. So we're not going to just get all enthused by this for a year or 2 and then let it go away. And then the last one was, we're going to create something that outlasts us. And that's been sort of our ethos for the charity ever since. So there was a lot of big questions at the beginning of, are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? What does that look like? Find out all the questions and answers. And I was in a privileged position to be able to be supported to do that. And then I had to get a job, and I had to build up whilst I was doing something else. And I think you just find your way, a trial and error, and you just want to do good and you want to help people. And it was all about helping one person when we started the charity. And I remember getting that first phone call where someone's like, did you know that this person found their lump? And they said, they told me the other day in the pub that you saved their life. And I was like, wow, that was amazing. And I remember calling my dad and he was like, that's incredible. On to the next one. And we just keep, that's always been the ethos. It doesn't matter how big we get, how many people we help. It's about helping that human in that moment, that family, that individual that's going through what they're going through. Whether that's prompting that person to go to the doctor, whether that's making them check themselves, helping them learn that, or whether it's someone when they've been diagnosed needing a support and a community. It's always just about helping one more person. And that just compounds over time. And there's no great science to it. You do a lot of stuff and it doesn't work. You do a lot of stuff that does work. You double down on the stuff that does work. And eventually you find the tone, you find the voice, you find out what resonates. And like I said, that's been humor for us. Taking things to the extreme, not doing things the way everyone else has done it. I've always said ignorance has been a superpower. Don't know how to start a charity, didn't know what I was doing. Trial and error really fast, and then eventually you double down on things that work. And we found the things that work for us is not sort of this traditional charity model. It's been big silly campaigns, big bold brash imagery, scroll stopping, eye stopping, conversation starting sort of campaigns. And we just keep that up. No matter how big we get, we keep that authentic to us, because that's who we are and that's what we stand for. Yeah, I think the main message is look, don't be embarrassed. I think that's the key one. Like what we do as a charity is all about permission giving. It's really interesting how we've evolved over the years. You know, it used to be we talk about awareness a lot, and now we talk about actually awareness is a key driver for behavior change. Actually, what we're trying to do is change people's behavior and create permission where it's okay to talk about these things. Like we always say, you're out in a field, you have a giant pair of bollocks around your head and you're talking to people, handing out cards, telling them how to check themselves. But people come up to you and talk about all sorts of things, different cancers, different illnesses, things, people they may have lost. And actually, that's just because even though what we're doing is inherently silly, we're creating a space where people go, oh, they're okay to talk about anything. And that's permission. And I think men need a lot of this. We don't have permission inherently. We have friend groups, perhaps with banter, and we have activities that we may do, but we don't always leave ourselves this space for peer-to-peer conversations or in-depth, deep conversations that might need to have. So what we've found is the more we do, the more we bring humor. And the key for the humor is we never make anyone else the butt of the joke, right? We're not laughing at cancer patients. We're not laughing at people that we've lost. We are laughing at ourselves by wearing silly costumes, having the big bold stuff on us, saying, you, general public, can come and laugh at us. That's the icebreaker. We're never making them feel silly. We're making them basically take the piss out of us so that we can just go, yes, that is funny, but here's how we can have a conversation. So it's about this embarrassment piece. And the embarrassment is not only, that reticence to have a peer-to-peer conversation. My friends know me as the guy that they can come to with any ailment. They start talking to me about all sort of things. I'm like, obviously go to the doctors about that. Obviously you need to talk to a specialist about that. But they know they've got permission with me because I'm not going to take the mick out of them. They're being vulnerable. Again, vulnerability comes from permission. So yeah, the embarrassment piece is really important, not just only those peer-to-peer conversations, but about then going and taking the action, right? Permission to say it's not selfish to take the time to go to the doctors. It's not selfish to take time out of my day away from my job or my family to go and look after myself. Because actually, our families and our workplaces need us in best health to go and deliver for however we want to deliver. So yeah, it's really about not being embarrassed to have the peer-to-peer conversations because sometimes we need that, just a space to have a conversation, and then that might prompt an action, and then taking the action. So don't be embarrassed and knowing your body, like we do have to get in tune with ourselves. We all complain if we get kicked in the leg at football or, our back is aching. Our testicles are just another part. I've interviewed multiple doctors. None of them care. They just want you to be okay. They're not laughing at you. They've seen absolutely everything. It's just another body part to them. What's a couple of minutes of uncomfortableness for you is worth its weight in gold compared to the mental anguish, the physical pain, the later diagnosis and more treatment you might need if anything is actually wrong. So don't be embarrassed. Know your normals and check yourself once a month. That was quite a long-winded way of saying that, but that's the ultimate bit.